What's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome to this video. As you can see by the title, this is a Q&A and really just like a life update on how things have been since we brought our twin baby girls into the world. I want to definitely mention that we are still very much in the postpartum phase, so I definitely feel ready to talk about some of the things that we've been through, but honestly, some things we're still going through. The girls are almost 2 months old now, so I feel like I'm in a good spot to kind of reflect and answer some of your questions. So I did ask on my Instagram for you all to submit questions that you had for me around postpartum, the newborn phase, all of that, and I got a ton of questions. I'm going to try to go through as many as I can. I briefly looked through these with Jonathan actually last night, and I didn't want to prepare any of my responses. Normally when I do a Q&A, I try to categorize questions and really plan out my answers, but one, I don't really have the time to do that anymore, and two, I think it'll be nice to go off the cuff and really just speak to how I feel and react. And when I did go through the questions, I did notice that there are definitely themes, and a lot of you are asking very similar things. So I won't necessarily touch on every person's specific question, but I'm going to try to touch on everything that was asked, if that makes sense. Before I jump into the Instagram responses, I did also pose this question on YouTube, and I did have a few of you ask some questions there. So first, how much sleep do you typically get each night after having the twins, and are you sleep training them? So I did see a good amount of questions on this, and honestly, sleep is like a lost luxury. We don't sleep, and if we do, it's really sporadic and it's so unpredictable. I'd say at a time at most we'll get 2 hours, and that's like a really good night if we can get a 2-hour stretch. Right now they're really cluster feeding and we're just not sleeping as much as we used to, so we're getting a lot of snuggles and coffee instead. And then as far as sleep training, no, I know that there are a lot of topics and concepts that are so controversial with parenting, and I'm going to just do my best to be honest on here, and judge me if you want, I really don't care. But sleep training a newborn is like not an option for me. I don't agree with that. I think that your newborn, you know, if they're crying, they need you or they need something, and you should be doing everything you can to meet those needs. They're babies, they don't need to be trained. If you're having a child, you just need to know that you're not going to be sleeping at first. Eventually maybe we'll sleep train down the line when they're older and more developed, but absolutely not at this point. What has been the hardest part that you were not prepared for, and is there anything you would have done differently to prepare for it? P.S. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I would say the hardest part for me, and this is specific to twins, is that, you know, when Jonathan is in the kitchen getting the bottles ready and I'm changing them, you know, I can only change one baby at a time, and the other baby is like crying and needs me, and there's no way for Jonathan and I to get to that baby for a few moments, and those periods of time are the hardest for me. Like when your baby is crying and you cannot help them, it's just not natural, and it's really difficult, and it's not a problem that happens with one baby. It's definitely a twin thing, and I really am struggling with that. A lot of things are really hard right now, and I'm sure I'll touch on all of those things in this Q&A, but I would say that is the most difficult. Next, can you explain if it has been hard to do all the things that you have to do as a new mom with the incision? Is it hard to stand up straight and hold the babies? So I touched on this a little bit in my birth story, but I have had a really good recovery with my C-section. I know everyone's experience is different. Nothing has really been difficult for me. I would say from about 1 week post-surgery through now, I've been completely fine. The best thing you can do is give yourself, you know, time to rest in that first week. I definitely could have given myself more time to rest, but I was so focused on my babies in the NICU. But give yourself time to rest. Post-delivery, I was walking like 6 to 8 hours afterwards, and I think that helped as well. Like I didn't let myself just stay laying down for 24 hours. I think that can kind of cause a delayed recovery time. So listen to your body, but try to just like strengthen yourself post-surgery because it'll help with your recovery. Next question. I'm curious about how you feel letting family members and friends come see the babies. How soon after delivering them were you ready to have visitors? I would say that I'm still struggling with visitors. I'm getting better. So I think everyone's different with having visitors post-delivery. I think that, you know, with the world we're living in right now with COVID and with all of these crazy variants and things like that, like it adds a level of nerves to having people coming in and out of your home. I definitely, you know, limit my visitors. It's nice that it's summertime, so pretty much every time anyone comes over, we are outside, and that's helped me. I think as far as like family and close friends visiting, I'm very fortunate that I have so many people that want to just jump in and help me. I have really struggled with taking help. I'm still struggling with that. I just think that because of what I consider a traumatic, like, post-birth experience, you know, being in the NICU, not being able to care for my babies the way I'd want to, not having that time with them, watching them, you know, struggle in the NICU, I just feel like I'm the only one capable of really taking care of them right now. They're still so vulnerable. They're so small. I have trust issues, and you know, I'm doing just fine taking care of them. I'm tired, but I'm fine, and I just feel like I don't need help, but I'm working on it. That all being said, you know, take help if you need it, and also don't take help if you don't feel like you need it. You shouldn't feel pressured in any way to, you know, let anyone into your bubble if you're not ready. Did you ever have anxiety before having the twins? If so, has it worsened now that you've had them? So if you followed along my whole pregnancy journey, I had a lot of anxiety because I had a high-risk pregnancy, so the anxiety was definitely warranted. And I think that just in general with pregnancy, most mothers have anxiety about, you know, everything. But I would say that once the babies were here, the anxiety that I had during pregnancy went away, and it was replaced by new anxieties. So you just kind of deal with it, and you do get more comfortable. The more that you care for your baby, the more that you know, see them grow and see them achieve, you know, new things like gaining weight, like, you know, taking in more food and whatever, you do become more comfortable and confident that they are okay. But the anxiety doesn't really go away, at least it doesn't for me, but I think that just means you're a great mom. That's what I tell myself. Someone asked, how do you know when you are economically ready for kids? And I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question. I think that, you know, if you allocate your resources appropriately and you make sure that you financially can afford a child in whatever way that looks for you, then, you know, you're ready to have a child. I think you need to make sure that you understand that children are expensive, that you hopefully have good insurance, that you get all your ducks in a row before you have a baby. But if you are, you know, in a place where you're ready to love and care for a child, you know, you'll make it work financially. I really do believe that. That's really all I'll say on that. Let's get into the Instagram questions because there are quite a few. How is Dobby handling being a big brother? Do you have any dog training tips? So, very good question. I definitely think that Dobby is doing an incredible job. Dobby is very high energy, and he's a very protective dog. He is a blue tick coonhound and just very, very protective. When I was pregnant, he knew immediately and he would not leave my side. And so I think he knows that, you know, these are our babies, they're part of our wolf pack here. You know, he wants to protect them, and sometimes that comes with more energy when he's around them. And so we just worry about him getting too excited, and that's really the only concern. He's been so gentle and so loving so far. So I think dog training tips, I mean, for us, we were in the NICU, so when we would come home, we would have Dobby smell their clothes from the day and their blankets so that he could get used to the smell of the babies, and that really, really helped. When I was pregnant, we were setting up the nursery, we really involved Dobby. We had Dobby hang out with us in here, let him get comfortable with the room that the babies would be sleeping in, things like that to just ease the dogs into the transition, I think are really helpful. How's balancing home cleaning and meals with babies? I'm really fortunate that I have a partner that is home pretty much 24/7. He's working from home, so we are able to keep up with the house as a team. I know not everyone has that opportunity, so please, all mothers out there, if you are home and you are by yourself, do not stress yourself out about keeping up with cleaning or cooking. Like, reach out to your village and ask for that help. For us, we do try to clean when the babies are napping, at least during like one nap during the day. We do try to rest while they're resting, but it makes us feel good when we are keeping up with cleaning. That's not for everyone, and I think do not pressure yourself to do that, but it works for us. So that helps with house chores. And then meals, Jonathan loves to cook. It's summer, so grilling is really big. Like, throwing things on the grill is really easy. We do a lot of frozen meals. I highly recommend that. And just like a lot of easy, simple grab and go snacks in the house helps with food too. Next question, have you experienced any hair loss? Everyone talks about that. So not yet. I've read that it can take like 5 or 6 months to experience hair loss, and I am breastfeeding both babies, so I think my body is still pumping all of those hormones. I've heard that once like your supply goes down or you stop breastfeeding, that's when you can really start to see the hair loss. So not looking forward to that. Next question, have you noticed anything that differentiates the girls, like habits, grins, little mannerisms? I love this question. And the answer is no, not really. Like, they are so identical, it's crazy. Like, everything that they do, the way they hold their hands when they take a bottle, the way they sleep, like, they do so much that is the same. I will say that Ren is a little bit more dramatic in her expressions, and I do think it's because she always measured like 2 weeks ahead of Sienna, and even in their development, you know, post-delivery, Ren is always a little bit ahead of her. So I think as Sienna grows, she's developing more of those same mannerisms that Ren has. So it just is getting harder and harder to tell them apart. For a while, Ren was so much bigger than Sienna, so that's how we told them apart. A lot of people asked, you know, tips on telling them apart, and that was the biggest differentiator. But now Sienna is catching up in weight, so they look so much alike, and it's really difficult. And I have no problem admitting it, that there are days that I definitely struggle to tell them apart. And maybe it's the sleep deprivation, I don't know. Someone asked, what's your favorite part about having twins? I mean, it's true, there's always double the snuggles, double the love, that whole thing. I think number one is that I'm so excited to see them grow together. I think the greatest gift you can give your kids is siblings, and because they're twins and they just are going to be lifelong best friends, that is definitely my favorite part. And the greatest gift I feel like I can give daughters is a sister, and especially a twin. That's just super exciting. And so many of you have commented on previous videos that you're a twin, or you know twins, or you had twins, and they are just best friends. And I think it's just such a gift. So that's number one. Does one wake up before the other during naps, or do they wake up around the same time? So this is a great question, because although we are not sleep training the twins, we are like feeding on demand. And with twins, the way we're feeding on demand is that when one baby wakes up, we feed both of them. So it works really well for us, and it's a system that it's really crazy, because if we don't feed them at the same time, then we'll feed one baby, we'll have like 15 minutes, and the next baby will need to be fed, and then it'll just teeter back and forth all day, every day. So we need time to ourselves, so we need to feed them together. So typically they don't wake up at the same time. There's usually one that starts to wake up first, and then we just kind of start to stimulate the other one, get the other baby awake, and feed them together. It's really challenging, but that's kind of how it's working for us. How did you come up with their names? I love them both. Thank you. So I actually remember seeing another question in here that asked which name we came up with first, so I'll kind of answer both questions. We did know Sienna's name first. I remember we were on like a long car ride, I think a little bit before we started trying to get pregnant, and we were just going through names, and I mentioned this in a previous video, but we always thought that our daughter's name would be Flora. We loved that name so much, and then we just came across the name Sienna. I think we were just looking through like vintage baby names or something. We just came across that name, and we both were just like, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. It's an Italian name. Jonathan's Italian. We loved the town of Siena when we were in Italy studying abroad, and it just clicked. Like, we both were like, our daughter's name is Sienna, 100%. So when we found out we were having twins, we, you know, still loved the name Flora, but we don't like how Sienna and Flora sounds together. So that name went out the window, and we came across the name Ren, and it really was as simple as that. We both just fell in love with the name Ren. We loved that a wren is a songbird. We like the imagery of that, and it just stuck. We started using those names when I was pregnant, just like referring to the baby as those names, and we did that with a few different names, and Sienna and Ren just always felt so right. And now that they're here, like, they are so their names, and that's really the origin. Favorite part of being a mom? Oh, what is my favorite part? I'm not sure there are words to describe what I love the most right now about being a mom, because it's so hard, it's so tiring. There is so little you know, time for yourself to even reflect on how great of a job you're doing and how much you love being a mom, because you're just so in it. But when I really think about it, I mean, I love how strong I feel. I love how empowered I am. I love how I created 2 humans with my favorite person in the world, and I love how perfect they are. And I think all of that combined is what I love about being a mom. I think it's the best role I've ever had because of how strong it's made me as a person and how selfless it's made me. I have never felt so second to anything else in my life, and those babies are just everything to me. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I love most right now. What is the hardest and what is the most beautiful part? So I know I kind of touched on different things that are challenging right now, but I think the hardest part about this period of time specifically is that it feels like you're on such a schedule constantly. As much as you get those snuggles after a feeding and you get that time to just like be with them when moments are still, when they're asleep and there's not so much chaos, it still feels like you don't get to soak up the newborn phase because it's so stressful. And there are days where I feel like they just flew by and I didn't have enough time with the babies, like quality time, because I was either feeding them or trying to breastfeed and pumping and trying to get sleep and trying to get chores done. And I really am struggling with how fast this is going by and how much I feel like I'm not soaking it up on certain days. The most beautiful part is all of that also, like the fact that life is so crazy and you're doing so much, but you're keeping these beautiful babies alive and they're relying on you and you are fulfilling every need they have, and that's really beautiful too. It's all the same. It's all beautiful and it's all really hard. How do you keep such a positive outlook? I admire you on that. Congratulations again. That's really sweet of you. Thank you. I, you know, am just naturally a really positive person. I always see the silver lining in things. It's just how I live my life. So that has helped. I know that not everybody is equipped with that outlook, and that's okay too. I definitely have days where I do not see everything with rose-colored glasses, let me tell you. But I think just knowing that this is the greatest gift I've ever been given in my entire life, and knowing that this period of time is not forever. I can't stress enough how important it is to like remind yourself of that if you were in the newborn or postpartum period, because it can feel like a dark cloud is over you if you let yourself believe that you're never going to get out of the fog. I just tell myself, soak this up. It's so hard. You're so tired, but it's not forever and you can't get this time back. Truly, I tell myself those things every day and it really helps. Someone asked, what's your new morning routine? And I will say that I think sometime next week I'm going to be filming 24 hours with newborn twins. I'm going to turn the camera on and let you into a full day of our lives. So I'll go through my morning routine then and all of that, so look out for it. How long did it take for your body to readjust and for you to feel like yourself again? So I definitely don't feel like myself. I don't know how long it takes everybody else, but it's been 2 months and I don't feel like myself, and I really don't think I ever will. I mentioned it in my last video or a few videos ago that I just feel like a completely different person, and some days I really love the new person that I am. Some days I definitely miss the old me in some respects, but I will say that I'm not holding out to like feel like me again. I'm just embracing this new version of myself. As far as like my body readjusting, I'm really fortunate that I believe because I'm breastfeeding, and especially breastfeeding twins, like physically my body is pretty much back to pre-pregnancy. I definitely have some extra love around my waist. I have a big C-section scar that I love so much, and you know, that's probably the biggest change, but overall I'm really fortunate that my body kind of bounced back, and I think it's in big part due to breastfeeding. Next question, will you continue to work? Yes, I'm going back to my full-time job in November, or like, I think Halloween is my first day back. Next is tips for trying to conceive. So I know that this doesn't really fall under the umbrella of this video, but I would say definitely just take it easy, enjoy the process, do not stress out. I really believe that, you know, I've talked about it in previous videos that, you know, it didn't work for us the first time that we tried to get pregnant, and I think it was because it was so mechanical. I was really trying to, you know, have sex on the right days and whatever. And so when it didn't work, we took a breath and we just said, if it happens, it happens, and then it happened. So for me, my best piece of advice is to just not overthink it and just enjoy yourself. How has you and Jonathan's relationship grown since having the babies? This is a great question. And again, I mean, I know it's been 2 months since we've had our girls, but sometimes I feel like even Jonathan and I are just so in this mode right now that I don't even know how much our relationship has changed. But when I take myself out of the situation that we're in and look at us from an outside view, it's crazy how much our relationship has changed. Our dynamic, the way we work with each other, the way we speak to each other, the way we interact, and the way that we care for these girls has completely transformed our relationship. And maybe down the line I'll be able to talk about it more and really reflect on how it's changed. But I think mostly, you know, before we had daughters, our biggest priority was each other. And when that shifts, you both have to kind of make space for the other person to prioritize putting their energy into something else. And I think because we've both really leaned into our role as parents, it's been really wonderful to watch him be a father and care for these girls. And I think it's been the same, you know, for him with me. There are times where our relationship is just on the back burner and we're tired and all of our focus is on them, and it's just understanding that. It's like a mutual understanding, and I think that's beautiful and really hard some days. And so I hope that makes sense. But that's been like the biggest shift in our relationship. How are you making time for you and your needs as well as your girls? I mean, I get to have a cup of coffee or 2 a day, and so that is pretty much the only me time I get, and I'm okay with that. We're really getting better, Jonathan and I, at allowing each other to have time when the girls are napping or just between feeds to do things that fill our tank. Like for me, filming and editing has been so wonderful. I didn't think I was going to even be filming really this whole summer. I was just gonna only focus on the girls, but we do have a little bit of time where one parent can watch both children, where the other parent can do things that they love. And so I've been really fortunate to be able to have this time for me. I've said it before, this YouTube channel is my creative outlet. So having this and being able to still upload and still interact with all of you, which I love so much, has been really instrumental for me in like my recovery from delivery. And so that's been really great that we make that time for each other. I shower every day. I know a lot of moms talk about how they haven't been able to shower in a while and whatever, but that's something that like Jonathan and I both make sure we get a shower every day. And it seems small, but a shower is just you time. Even if it's 5 minutes, it's so important to like prioritize that, because then you also feel good, you look good, you're clean for a small period of time until your babies puke all over you, in my case. Little things like that I'm doing to make time for me. How's breastfeeding going? Any tips for first-time moms? So congratulations as a fellow first-time mom. Breastfeeding has been quite the journey. I'm so fortunate that from the day they were born, I was producing milk. I produced a good amount of colostrum the day that they were born, and since then I have been pumping non-stop. I was really dedicated to breastfeeding, and I think you have to be, especially if you want to breastfeed twins, because your supply can be there, but you need to work for it. So my biggest tip is to start right away, right after your babies are born. When it's safe to start pumping, or, you know, put the baby to your breast if you're lucky enough to be able to do that. I was not able to for a while after they were born, but I pumped every 3 hours and just really let my body know, you have 2 babies to feed. You gotta go to work. I will say that I am struggling with breastfeeding, you know, nipple to baby. Right now, they're getting most of their food from pumped milk through a bottle. And it's honestly something that I'm really struggling with, you know, emotionally, because I so badly want to be able to feed them directly from my breast, but because they were in the NICU for so long and they got so used to bottles, it's just harder. And they're still so young. I mean, they were born preemies. They're only 2 weeks past their due date right now. So our lactation consultant says it's just going to take time. So I'm working really hard, and at every feeding I'm kind of doing a triple feed where I put them on the breast, and then whatever else they need I give it to them via bottle, and then I pump after. So I'm slowly starting to realize that that's not sustainable and I need to not triple feed, but I'm doing just the best I can, and that's all you can do. A lot of questions around my relationship with Jonathan. I know I mentioned it, you know, has your relationship grown? Yes, it has. Just to answer that, it's grown, and I love him more than I ever have before. Seeing him as a father, you know, he's the reason that I have these beautiful babies, and I owe him everything for that because they are my world. So it's definitely grown. Someone asked about breastfeeding. Is it going how you expected, and do you have a goal? Somewhat going how I expected. And as far as a goal, no, I don't have like a certain date that I want to get to breastfeed them. I want to just take it one day at a time. And if there's a day that, you know, my supply dries up and there's nothing I can do about it, or if there's a day that I decide that breastfeeding is just too emotionally taxing for me, I may stop. I need to put myself first in order to be the best mother to my children. And I think with breastfeeding, it can get really exhausting. And so as of right now, I'm still okay. It's still super worth it to me. But again, just one day at a time, no real end goal. Someone asked if the nurses liked their thank you basket you made for them. Yes, they absolutely loved it. I would really suggest making a thank you basket if you are going to be delivering at a hospital, because I had so many nurses come into our room thanking us, and just they were so grateful. Favorite clothing brand. So I will link all of my favorite maternity and postpartum clothing brands down below for you. I've talked about them in other videos, but I'll link them here. Someone asked what items from my registry are my favorite so far. So I am going to do a video eventually on all of my newborn essentials. I don't want to do it yet because they're still so young. I want to do it once I can really reflect and give the lowdown on everything that I loved. So that will definitely be coming. Have you had any postpartum depression? Congrats on the beautiful baby girls. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I think that I have had a lot of postpartum anxiety, like a lot. It's something that I've never experienced before, obviously, and I think I'm still definitely in the postpartum phase. I don't know if I'm still, you know, experiencing depression. I think some days are better than others, and that's just the way it goes. It's like a roller coaster of recovery after you give birth. I'm not really ready to talk about all of that yet because I'm still so in it. I'm giving myself grace every single day, and you should too if you are a new mom, or if you are going to be a new mom soon. Just remember to honor how you feel and ask for help if you need it, and also do what's best for you. If you need time just by yourself, just with you and your baby and your partner, like take that time and don't apologize for it. A lot of questions on just like products, items, things I'm loving in postpartum and newborn. Again, going to talk about this in future videos. So how do you have time for anything? I have a 2-month-old and I struggle to cope. I don't have time for anything, but I make time for things that are important. Again, like even if it's 45 minutes to film a YouTube video or 5 minutes to shower, like I already talked about, like you can plan out. Well, actually you really can't plan because as you saw in my last video, I tried to film and the girls were just not having it. So I don't know, I think you just try your best to carve out time, and you know, it won't be every day that you have you time, but it does get better. And as your babies mature, I mean, both of our babies are 2 months, and I think this time is still so uncertain and every day looks different, but I've heard that it gets better and there will soon be more us time. Someone else asked how I'm keeping my supply up to feed twins. As mentioned, I'm pumping every 3 hours, and that's worked for me. I know there are like things such as power pumping, and if you have certain pumps, there's different settings you can use to let your body know you need more milk. I think the biggest tip is to pump until you no longer have milk coming out, and then pump like 2 to 3 minutes after that because it triggers your body to produce more milk. I haven't really done that. I've just done 20-25 minute pumps and that's worked, but I've heard that that method can be really helpful. And best of luck to you. I know it can be hard. As my girls grow, they're taking in more milk, and I am worried every day that I'm not going to have enough of a supply. So you're not alone in worrying. What do you plan to follow when they are a little bit older as far as a routine? I don't know yet. I will show you on this channel as my babies grow and we figure that out. But as of right now, one day at a time. I have no idea. Someone just asked, how are you? I just think that's so kind. And I want to say thank you for asking that. As simple of a question as it is, it's nice because so much is about the babies, which it should be, but it is nice when people just check in on you as a mother. So my reminder to you, if you have new moms in your life, check in on them, but I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Biggest piece of advice for an expecting twin mama. I will say number one is that there is nothing in the world that you can do to prepare properly, because it is like nothing that you ever could have imagined before having them. Like, it's so different than what I expected, and it's like so much better and so much harder, and I'm just saying that to let you in on the fact that it's okay if you bring them home and you were like, whoa, I was not prepared for this, because that's how Jonathan and I felt. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed looking at the babies in the bassinet at 3 in the morning and just like hugging each other and saying, this is really hard. And kind of that first night is the time when you really start to accept that your whole world is rocked and your life is so different. I think my biggest piece of advice is to let yourself get to 2 weeks. Once we hit the 2-week mark, we were in a groove. It's still so hard. It's still so unpredictable, but you kind of come to terms and you are at peace with the fact that your life is so unpredictable. I know I keep using that word, but it's the best way to describe it. Those babies steer the ship, and once you like accept that, and I think that comes at about 2 weeks, you'll be okay. That's my biggest piece of advice. Favorite places to shop for those beautiful girls. I will link that down below. To be honest, I haven't even really shopped for them because we've received so much clothes from family and friends, but I have a lot of stores saved that I'm excited to eventually shop at. What does Jonathan do to help you? So this is a really good question, and I think that, again, I'm really fortunate that he is home and he is able to be such a presence. I think the biggest way that he supports me and the biggest role he plays is in like handling the milk. And it's a funny way to put it, but he literally, I call him the milkman. When I pump, I just take my pumped milk, put it on the counter, and he like handles it. He puts it in bags, he labels it, he freezes some, he just handles the milk, and I don't have to think twice. He gets it ready at each feeding, and that's just so huge. I've really appreciated that every time I am breastfeeding or pumping, he is doing something productive around the home to make me not feel like I'm the only one taking on a role in this moment. And so that's been really helpful. And I think if you have a partner, laying that out at the beginning, like, hey, when I'm pumping, when I'm feeding the baby, like, do something productive around the house, because if I could be up and being productive, I would, but instead I'm feeding a baby, which is actually the most productive thing you could possibly do, but you know what I mean. Is newborn parent lack of sleep as bad as everyone says it is? Yes, it is. But you realize quickly that you don't need that much sleep to function. Like, if I can get 2 hours, I'm fine. I'll burn out eventually, but I'm fine. Pregnant with identical boys. I'd love to know weights of your sweet girls at birth. Congratulations. So I actually haven't shared this, and I don't know why. I was like a little nervous to share our daughter's birth weights. I don't know why. I talked to Jonathan about that, but he said it's probably helpful for people to hear. So our daughters, Sienna was 3 pounds 12 ounces at birth, and Ren was 4 pounds 8 ounces. And I was so happy that Ren was 4 pounds. I really was hoping that Sienna would be born at 4 pounds. It just felt like a healthier weight to me. Don't get so hung up on your baby's weight. They will eventually grow. Both of our girls are around 7 pounds right now and growing every day. So those were our baby's weights. Someone asked about postpartum weight loss. So I'm not super like comfortable talking about specifics around weight on here, because like not what I'm here to do, and every body is so different. And I know I mentioned that I did bounce back pretty quickly postpartum, and I literally did nothing as far as like exercising or dieting. If anything, I'm eating way more than I ate my whole pregnancy. I'm so hungry breastfeeding, but I still lost a lot of my pregnancy weight, but that's not the case for everyone. So give yourself grace. They say it takes a year to get yourself fully back to how you were before, if you ever even get to that point. You know, you might just have a new beautiful body, and that's cool too. What's been the best, worst parts of the newborn stage? The hardest is just sleep and lack of it. Definitely the hardest part. I mean, sleep deprivation is a torture technique. So I know for us with twins, we are not able to say, okay, Jonathan, I'm gonna sleep in this morning, you feed the baby. We have 2 babies. There's always one parent with 1 baby. We try to, you know, like right now, Jonathan is with the girls in the other room because they're napping. And sometimes we would take these chunks of time and have one of us nap, you know, with the babies. And so doing that when one parent is really tired is super helpful. And that's kind of just the name of the game. And the best part of the newborn phase is the snuggles and how much they love you. And weirdly, I love when they're crying and they need me and I put them on me and they just stop crying and they snuggle up, and it's just the best feeling in the entire world. I cannot put words to it, and it makes everything okay. Like when you are exhausted at 4 a.m., the second you get that contact time, it's just, it makes it all worth it. How long did it take to transition from colostrum to milk? So I was asking Jonathan about this because I couldn't really remember. Those first 5 days are like a blur, but I believe it took me about 3 days to start producing my first like version of breast milk. If you're not super familiar with colostrum, it is like the first fluid or liquid that comes out of your breast after you deliver, and it is like liquid gold for the baby. It coats their bellies, it gives them a boost of all these immunities, and it's so good for them. So my colostrum lasted about 3 days, I would say. Do you plan on having any more kids? If so, any names in mind? The answer is yes and yes. We definitely want more babies. I loved being pregnant. I never pictured myself only being pregnant once, especially having loved it so much. So I definitely like want to be pregnant again. I want to go through this crazy journey again because as hard as it is, it's so wonderful and there's nothing like it. And yes, we do have names in mind. How are you and Jonathan's parental leave policies at work? So my leave is great. I have 5 months, and Jonathan's job is just really flexible in general, so he doesn't have like a structured leave policy, but his employer is just very flexible. What is it really like having 2 newborns at once? It is really difficult, and there are 2 babies with 2 needs all at once. I think something that we're really grateful for is that we had twins before having a singleton baby, because I've heard that once you have a singleton, that's hard enough. 1 baby is absolutely so difficult, and that's not lost on me. But I think if we had 1 and then 2, we would feel even more defeated. But because we don't know the difference, all we know is 2 babies, so it's crazy hard, but we just don't know anything different. What has been the biggest adjustment you've had to make? Honestly, I think that it's been hard to like accept that our life is kind of on pause right now. Like there's things that are going on, especially in summertime, that you just have to miss because you're caring for newborns, and our newborns were preemies, so we are definitely being more reserved with what we choose to do outside of our home and places we choose to go, because you know there's a lot of risks with our babies, and they're still so little and they're still so young. So that's been really hard. It's been hard to like express that to loved ones and create boundaries with people in our lives. We've struggled with that. You know, ultimately it's all about doing what's best for us and what's best for our family, and we just keep that top of mind. How have you felt emotionally since becoming a mom? Emotionally, the hardest change that I've had is just, you know, going into this mama bear mode and worrying constantly, and sometimes the worry takes away from the enjoyment of this newborn phase because I just love them so much and I just want them to be okay, and I overthink and I do all the things that I believe any new mom does when, you know, they just really want their babies to be safe. And so that's really hard. It takes a toll on me emotionally, but I'm getting better every day. Baby shifts with hubby, how does he support you? Do you take shifts? No, we do not take shifts. As far as like feeding and changing and things like that, like when the babies are in need of us, we're both kind of doing something. And I will say, I think that will change as they get older and they get neck support, and we can put them in like baby bouncers and we can do more to allow them to play independently. But right now they're so small, so fragile that they require one parent at all times, like per baby. How have you been balancing time with your partner and time for yourself? I've touched on it. Jonathan and I don't have any time for like our relationship, just between the two of us. We're so focused on the girls. And again, that's okay. I feel that the newborn phase just doesn't allow for you to have like a super strong connection with your partner that's like isolated away from your babies. But you just created life, and to take care of this life or these lives is so beautiful and such a good reflection or outcome of your relationship. So it's all kind of intertwined, and eventually you'll get back to that one-on-one time with your partner. How have your postpartum hormones been? So a little bit different than just like depression, anxiety. Like for me with a C-section, my labor and delivery nurses came in and checked on me the day after I delivered and said, you know, just look out for day 3 post C-section. And I think this is similar with a vaginal delivery, but they just kept saying day 3 is when your hormones completely drop. You know, it's 3 days after your placenta has left your body. It's some sort of science where they know day 3, you're gonna really be feeling the baby blues. Even though I totally prepared for that and knew it was coming, nothing could have prepared me for how I felt on that day. I would say day 3 to day 5 postpartum was so difficult. I cried constantly. I wasn't even sad necessarily. I just was so emotional, and all I wanted to do was like hug my babies. And again, my daughters were in the NICU, so I didn't get as much time with them to like make me feel better, which I think did not help. But regardless, I would say that's my biggest piece of advice, is to be aware of that hormone dip and give yourself grace. Like on day 4, or maybe it was later in the day, day 3, Jonathan and I just went back to my room and watched TV and just like relaxed for a little bit to allow me to feel all my feelings. And so I would advise doing that also. Your hormones go crazy like for months after you deliver too, just an FYI. It's different for everybody, but all I can say is just like honor how you feel and really communicate to your partner what you're feeling so that they can support you. What size clothes are your girls wearing? So they are somewhere between preemie and newborn sizing now. I think once you're around 7 pounds, you're kind of out of preemie clothes. However, like Sienna still fits in some of her preemie clothes. So they're right in between. A lot of their newborn clothes are big on them. I tried yesterday to put them in clothing that's meant for 0 to 3 month olds, and they were so big on them. So I don't really know exactly what size they are, but safely I'd say newborn sizing. How are the girls adjusting to home life? I'm a nurse and no hospital stays are noisy, busy. Our girls thrive in loud rooms and they thrive in loud environments. Like they struggle at nighttime to go to sleep because it's so quiet. We always have noise machines on, but they sleep the best when they're around people talking, the TV on, and I think it's because of the NICU. NICUs are so loud, there's always so much going on. So it's really funny, like the dog barks, we vacuum, you know, all the things that make noise don't bother them. So it's good, but at night, we don't want to have the TV on because Jonathan and I want to try to sleep, but the girls are fussing because they need noise. So that's something that's pretty common with NICU babies, and they grow out of it eventually. What is Jonathan like as a dad? I could talk for a long time about how wonderful of a father he is already to these girls. He's always been such an incredible partner, so I never doubted him as a father, but you hear stories about how women feel alone in their parenting and how dads don't step up to the plate, and you know, there's always, I don't know, that thought out there, but He has been so incredible. The best way that he fathers our girls right now is in the ways that he supports me, and he lets me do what I need to do as far as providing food for them and, you know, feeling all of my feelings and just supporting me and putting his emotions on the back burner sometimes in order to just have us as a family be okay. And that aside, he does everything that the girls need. I mean, he steps in and just does everything from changing diapers to preparing milk to caring for them, soothing them. He knows all the things that they need when they're crying, and he's just incredible, and I could not do this without him. I think just watching the way that he loves them, you know, allows me to see from an external perspective the way that he loves me, if that makes sense, because I've always been on the receiving end of his love, but to observe it and see the way he loves our daughters is one of the greatest gifts I've ever had in my life. So all that to say is that he is a great father. How do you and your husband handle a nighttime routine, feed, diaper changes, etc.? So typically we wait for one of the girls to wake up. Sometimes it's both of them, and immediately Jonathan goes to the kitchen, gets the milk ready. I change their diapers, and by the time, you know, I'm done and he's done, we just pick them up, lay in bed. That's where we do the night feeds, and we feed both the girls. We put them on us after for about 20 minutes, and we put them back down. And sometimes they don't want to go back down. Sometimes one baby is still hungry, and so typically if one baby is still fussing, one of us will kind of care for them, the other will go back to sleep, and then the next time we'll switch. Very, again, unpredictable. Every night is different, but that's roughly how nighttime goes. Okay, so the last question is, what are 3 things that you would tell another first-time mom? And so I think number 1 that I've mentioned is to give yourself that first 2 weeks. You know, really feel all your feelings, cry if you need to, ask for help when you need to, distance yourself from the outside world when you need to, whatever those first 2 weeks look like for you, like honor that and let yourself get to that point. Because I swear once you hit 2 weeks, maybe it's 3 weeks for you, maybe it's 1 week, but you're gonna hit a point where you're in your stride and you've accepted this new normal. Next piece of advice I would say is to soak it up. And I know everyone says that, and maybe it's cliche, but it's helped me so much to, again, remind myself that this is not forever. There are so many moms out there that constantly grieve and miss the newborn phase, and so I just tell myself that I'm gonna miss this in some crazy way. I'm going to miss this period of time, and I'm going to miss my babies being this small and needing me this much. And so I would say that, you know, it's important to remember that you're not gonna feel this forever, and even though this is hard, it's temporary. And so that's my second piece of advice. And then third is to try to make time for yourself, but let that time be flexible, whether it's 5 minutes in the shower, or, you know, asking your partner if you can take, you know, the next nap time for you to do something that you love, that fills your tank, that allows you to feel like you've achieved something that day outside of, you know, the care for your baby. I will remind you that caring for your baby is the most productive thing you can possibly do, and it is the most important. But I mean, I have no problem admitting that I love days where I feel like I got something done that was really for me. And so that's not every day, even if that's once a week or once a month. I don't know, just off the cuff, those are just the 3 pieces of advice that came to my mind. I'm sure if I took more time to think through this video, my responses may have been more curated, but I have said it in my recent videos that I want this new chapter of my life to be authentic, and I want that to be reflected in my YouTube channel. I really want you all to just see exactly how my life looks right now. And I just heard a baby crying, so I am going to go check that out. That's it for this video, and I just cannot thank you all enough for being here, for supporting me. And if you are a mom, an expecting mom, a new mom, or just a mom in general, I welcome you to this community, and I just, you know, think you're incredible for bringing a baby or more than one baby into this world, because it's truly the greatest gift and it's the hardest thing ever. So I'm proud of you and I'm proud of us. So thank you for being here. Please hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the little bell so you're notified when I post new videos, and I will see you guys soon. I dare you to be wilder. I don't fit into